Okay, welcome everybody back. For our midday keynote, we move from the Czech Republic to Slovakia and from the question of how disinformation circulates to a sharper, more specific question. What happens when Russia becomes not just an external influence, but an active fault line without domestic politics? Juraj Marušiak is a political scientist and historian who has been a senior research fellow at the Institute of Political Science of the Slovak Academy of Science since 1996 and has served as a director since 2022. His research spans the political history of Slovakia in the 20th century, the development of Central and Eastern European political science since 1989, and the international relation of the V4 countries with particular focus on Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova. He completed a lay curriculum scholarship at Warsaw University, specializing in East European studies, and has conducted research and teaching stays across Czech Republic, Russia, Poland, Belarus, and Bulgaria. He's the author of several monographs of Slovakian literature and power, Central European nationalism, and the student movements of '56. His keynote today is titled Russia as a Dividing Issue in Slovakia, Slovakia's Eastern policy in the shadow of domestic political competition. For audience in North Macedonia and Serbia, Slovakia's current situation offers both a warning and a point of reflection. The way in which attitude toward Russia have cleaved Slovak society and the way these cleavages are being exploded in domestic political competition. It resonates with the dynamics we recognize closer to home, how a country related to Russia is no longer simply a matter of foreign policy. It has become a proxy for deeper disrupts about sovereignty, identity, and what kind of future is worth wanting. Please welcome Juraj Marušiak. Juraj.
So, dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So, firstly, I would like to express my thanks to the organizers for inviting me to the project and to the conference to the presentation of my preliminary findings. So, the aim of my presentation is to analyze the foreign policy shift of Slovakia after the parliamentary elections in September 2023. So, the last parliamentary elections resulted into the substantial change of the ruling coalition. No party from the previous coalition of center-right parties is represented in the recent one. So these elections confirmed the deep division of Slovakia into at least two political segments. On one side, we can speak about the bloc of center-right parties, being the part of government in the years 2020 till 2023, the part of a very non-stable government, starting with the constitutional majority, however, finally lost even the simple majority in the National Council of the Slovak Republic, and their electoral terms has been finished by the early elections because of the collapse of parliamentary majority. So the second bloc is the recently ruling coalition of national populist parties. And some of them, especially Smer Social Democracy and Hlas Social Democracy, declared themselves as the center-left parties. However, their self-identification, declaratory self-identification, is disputed by not only many political analysts, but also by their former partners from the Party of European Socialists. The Even before the beginning of the Russia's aggression against Ukraine, before the beginning of the full-scale invasion in 2022, the Slovak society was deeply divided. However, the full-scale invasion and the further development after this full-scale invasion contributed to the increasing political polarization within the country. Whilst in 2020, in these parliamentary elections, the main focus was given on the struggle against the corruption and on the improvement of the quality of democracy. In 2023, the electoral paradigm has radically shifted to another issues. The issues of corruption almost disappeared from the rhetoric of political parties. However, that time the opposition, now the ruling coalition, put stress on the overcoming of the political chaos, but also on the foreign policy issues. The parties of the future coalition of already mentioned nominally social democratic parties, Smer and Hlas, but also nation conservative pro-Russian party, Slovak National Party, claimed the restoration of the state sovereignty of the country. And they also won because of their allegedly pro-peace rhetoric. They promised the termination of the weapon supply to Ukraine. Slovakia, in terms of the relations of Russia, was perceived as a special case of Central Europe already in the 1990s, especially in the second half of 1990s, when Vladimir Smečiar's government was building a special type of relationships with the Russian Federation in response to the crisis in relations with the European Union and NATO. This period of the so-called pragmatic approach to the Russian Federation was finished by the political breakthrough after the parliamentary elections in 1998, when the new pro-European, pro-Western coalition of both central-right and central-left party was established, and at that time was established also the new foreign policy consensus. This foreign policy consensus worked, in fact, till 2014, till the Russia's invasion to Crimea. However, of course, there were some moments where this consensus didn't work, for example, during the Kosovo crisis in 1999 and during the war between Russia and Georgia. The Russia's occupation of and the annexation of Crimea and the beginning of the conflict in Donbas area, however, was a new milestone also in the terms of the foreign policy consensus. This year 2014 became was the beginning of the gradual erosion of this foreign policy consensus within Slovakia, shared both by the ruling coalition parties and main opposition parties. Now I would like to move to the theoretical framework of my presentation. So the first points to be discussed are the issues of the so-called populist foreign policy. It means how the populist model of governance is impacting the foreign policy of the country. I would like to put your attention to the fact that the case of Slovakia is and was not simply the case of the struggle between populists and non-populist politicians. Even the previous ruling coalition, dominated by such parties as formerly ordinary people and independent personalities. Now the name of this party is the movement Slovakia, and the second largest party was the party We Are Family Nation Conservative Party, was the coalition with huge presence of populist political forces. Even the name of the main ruling party is showing it's pointing out to its populist character. Then, however, these elections and the political conflict in Slovakia was framed in the years of since 2020 till 2023, but even until now, as a competition of different populist movements. So until now, this issue of populist foreign policy is rather an under-researched topic. As general, before the refugee crisis in 2015, especially in Central Europe, populist politicians were focused with their populist agenda mostly to the domestic political issues, and they didn't target neither the foreign policy priorities nor the process of the foreign policy making. So in the last decade, however, the situation has been changed. With these issues of the populist foreign policy are affecting several aspects of the foreign policy. Firstly, it is, of course, the control of the foreign policy making. It means who are the main actors of the foreign policy mostly on the level of the executive power. Second issue is the formation of the new political alliances, both in the domestic policies and in the foreign policy. And we must see the stress that many times this illiberal character of populism is promoting also the liberal alternatives in the global relations. So if we can agree with Andrew Moravchik that the radical right parties before 2015 and before the full-scale invasion to Ukraine in European Union were more barked than bited. Now the situation has changed, especially in the conditions of under the circumstances of this full-scale Russia's invasion to Ukraine. At the same time, however, we must underline this genuinely democratic origins of populism. So the main demand of populists is the restore of the people's sovereignty of the political process. It is really genuinely a democratic demand. Also, in terms of populist foreign policy, especially in the case of Slovakia, the important points are the points raised by Paul Taggart, speaking about the chameleonic character of populism. So how much populist political leaders, populist political parties are changing their political orientation, they are changing their ideological frameworks, and they even are changing their foreign policy priorities depending on their political environments where they are acting. And the second point from the definitions of by Paul Taggart is the he was speaking about the disappearance of populism after the coming to the power. However, the recent experience of Central European populists, especially in case of Slovakia, but also Hungary and Poland, is showing that the populist politics can continue in the long-term perspective. So this this populist moment is not ending after the coming of populists to the power, and especially taking into account its anti-elitarian character. So, and the third theoretical point I would like to stress is the moment of de-Europeanization. So, what does this de-Europeanization mean? This is also a relatively under-researched topics, and so the Europeanization could mean the loss or the weakening of the EU or Europe as a normative political context and as a reference points in domestic settings and the national public debates. So it could be defined as a distancing of the domestic context from the European system of norms, values, and policy expectations. Also, we will analyze this ongoing, continuing process of the de-Europeanization of the political agenda of Smer Social Democracy, as just this party, Smer Social Democracy, is the main political force setting the agenda of the foreign policy of Slovakia. This de-Europeanization could be followed on the level of single decisions, however, also on the level of multiple decisions substantively connected, or on the level of identities. So it could be also understood as a reversal process of Europeanization. And also, Attila Ak is stressing that Europeanization in the context of Central and Eastern European countries involves also the debate about the liberal values. In this introduction of liberal values into the Central European political discourse was very closely connected with the Europeanization processes, with their approachment and gradual accession into the European Union. And this abandonment of liberalism, of so-called progressive values, is also the part of the Europeanization processes. Also, it was present in the rhetoric of the recent coalition parties, especially before the parliamentary elections, when some politicians, for example, leaders of the Slovak National Party, as the junior coalition partner, claimed for the construction of the dam against the progressivism. Also, the political self-identification of Smer Social Democracy Party at the beginning of 2000s, it means after its establishment, and on the eve of the EU accession, was closely connected with the Europeanization processes of the country. So the accession of Slovakia to the European Union contributed to the accession of the Smer Social Democracy to the Party of European Socialists, and to the re-identification, repositioning of this party. This party was established in 1999 as initially a pragmatic, non-ideological party. However, and its founder, despite the former social democrat Robert Fico, despite his social democratic past. In that time, he rejected any options of the social democratic identification. He rejected this option even in the year of 2002. However, and on the eve of EU accession, he radically changed his mind. In fact, in 1 or 2 days, and then he decided. This Smer decided on the top levels without any discussion on the grassroots level to switch from this non-ideological model of party building to the social, to make the party social democratic. To this the social democratization process was, from this point of view, the top-down process, and the party. Also due to the upcoming elections to the European Parliament, suddenly defined itself as a social democratic party, as a part of Party of European Socialists. This party also joined the Socialist International. So from this perspective, there's social democratization of this party was the part of its Europeanization. Also, we will follow the development of the party's self-identification, especially in the context of the Russia's war in Ukraine, and the development of Slovakia after the last parliamentary elections. And also, what is also the part of the title of my presentation, we will speak about the political cleavages. It means historically determined social or cultural lines which divide the citizens within the society into groups with differing political interests, and resulting in the political conflicts among these groups. So foreign policy cleavage is not generally mentioned by the political sociologists Seymour Martin Lipset or Stein Rokkan, who were the authors of this notion in their famous works. However, this foreign policy cleavage belongs to the new cleavages emerging in many post-communist countries after the fall of the Iron Curtain and after the change of their geopolitical orientation. So, however, also it can appear in some other countries as these political cleavages before the end of 1970s were somehow frozen also in Western Europe. And in Slovakia, this issue of the foreign policy consensus or foreign policy division, foreign policy conflicts are not the new issues. They emerged almost immediately after the proclamation of the independent Slovakia, when the relations of Russia and the relations to the Western groupings such as the European Union and NATO became the part of political conflicts, and not only the part of political conflicts, but also became the grounds of the structuration of political parties. So Slovakia is a good example how these national interests not in a traditional neorealist sense of this notion, but from the constructivist perspective, as it was stressed by Peter Kratochvil, is dependent on the role of the domestic political actors and how the society could be, Slovak society could be understood as heterogeneous phenomenon with the significant role of societal actors and symbolics and the meanings. So relations with Russia were the matter of conflicts in 1990s, as it was already mentioned. This consensus, foreign policy consensus, underwent the erosion after 2014, when the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, expressed very critical attitudes to the so-called Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine. And however, Robert Fico criticized the following European Union sanctions policy towards Russia. On the other hand, Robert Fico, as a prime minister, and the coalition partners continuously criticized condemned the Russia's annexation of Crimea, and they supported the territorial integrity of Ukraine, which remained the topic of the consensus of the decisive majority of political parties in Slovakia, only except of some extreme right fringe political parties. So the single party openly supporting the Russia's policy towards Ukraine was the neo-Nazi People's Party, Our Slovakia, led by Marian Kotleba. This party became, since 2016 till 2020, represented in the parliament. So, however, before 2018, the debate on the relationship with Russia was formulated primarily at the levels of civil society. Robert Fico occasionally expressed this disapproval, his dissatisfaction with the EU sanctions policy towards Russia. However, Slovakia didn't boycott, didn't block the adoption of the sanctions. Fico rather preferred the negotiations about the sanctions justified by some existing threats for the economic interests of Slovakia. Then this after 2018, after this anti-corruption riots, the debate about the relationships towards Russia has moved from the level of the civil society, from the level of the media and non-governmental organizations, civil society activists, to the political parties, when Robert Fico was forced to withdraw from the position of prime minister, whilst Andrej Kiska and his successor in office of president, Zuzana Čaputová, promoted the unequivocal support for Ukraine and also for support for Ukraine accession to NATO. Robert Fico started to oppose it. So Robert Fico and the ruling parties, Smer, especially Smer, made a significant effort to continue in the good relations with Russia, and they claimed for this for somehow multivectoral Eastern policy, at the same time for the supporting Ukraine in practical issues like in providing transformation aid, humanitarian aid to Ukraine, natural gas supplies by the reverse flow through the gas pipeline system of Slovakia. However, Smer simultaneously on the discursive level refused to label Russia as an enemy of Slovakia or as the enemy of the West. Also, this rhetoric was differentiated among the different politicians from Smer Social Democracy, while Peter Pellegrini, that time a member of Smer, and in the years 2018-2020, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, replacing Robert Fico, pronounced more pro-Western, pro-European rhetoric. For example, some other politicians of this party, like Luboš Blaha, with the huge influence on the shaping of program priorities of this party, pronounced more active, more stronger pro-Russian and anti-Western statements. So, however, after national elections in 2020, Slovakia experienced the more pro-Western and pro-Atlantic shift in its foreign policy. However, the conflicts after the conflicts caused by the management of COVID pandemics and also by the attempts of the center-right government to criminalize the previous government, the many members of Smer party, its nominants in the top position in police and the judicial bodies, the ministries for corruption. It contributed also to the radicalization of Smer and Slovak National Party, and this they raised also the Russian card. So they launched not only the anti-governmental political mobilization and illiberal political mobilization, but also anti-Western political mobilization. So already in 2020, Pellegrini, just before the elections in 2020, he paid the visit to Moscow. He was the first EU prime minister visiting the newly appointed Russia's prime minister, Sergei Mishustin. However, the success of Russian card was somehow problematic because the main promoter of pro-Russian policy in Slovakia, Slovak National Party, became marginalized. Since 2020, this party found itself outside the parliament, and also Smer lost the elections. Subsequently, in the fall 2020, Smer split, and the new party Hlas, led by Peter Pellegrini, founded and led by Peter Pellegrini, was established, and with declared more pro-Western, more social democratic identity, refusing the coalition political partnership with the radical right. So the new government, however, announced the radical pro-Atlantic shift, which was expressed also in the Slovak security strategy, which was approved by the National Council of the Slovak Republic According to it, Russia was defined as Russia's foreign policy was defined as a security threat for Slovakia. The political polarization increased also in the terms of foreign policy. Before the beginning of the full-scale invasion to Ukraine is at the end of 2021 and at the beginning of 2022. This invasion, however, changed this Slovak foreign policy debate practically from the ground up. So a few weeks before the invasion took place the negotiations about the bilateral Slovak-US agreement on the cooperation in the security affairs, which was strongly opposed by the opposition parties. Smer, together with other opposition parties, national conservative parties, organized the protests, the rallies with their main slogan, they fought for peace, and also they pronounced their statements aimed to the protection of the state sovereignty of Slovakia. They interpreted this agreement as a betrayal of national sovereignty of the country and as a step towards the war against Russia. So some of the slogans on these protests were, for example, never against Russia. They also labeled all the statements, all the of the people who warned before the beginning of the full-scale invasion as the Western propaganda, as the wish to escalate the atmosphere, and even as the wish to launch the war against Russia. So however, the outbreak of the war for a short period, for the few weeks, contributed to the re-establishment of the foreign policy consensus, and also Robert Fico, as a leader of Smer party, voted for the resolution of the Slovak parliament condemning Russia's invasion. However, it took only short time, and also what is important to stress that this option of Smer to condemn this invasion was not shared by all leaders of the party. At least two deputy chairmen of the party, Luboš Blaha and Ladislav Kamenický, didn't take part in the voting for the respective resolution of the parliament. The parliamentary elections, this parliamentary resolution and further development, further political debate regarding the financing of the military aid to Ukraine contributed to the further divisions of the political parties. We can simply say that the center-right, both conservative and liberal parties, supported the unconditional military support to Ukraine. Also, the President Zuzana Chaputova supported it, and also non-parliamentary opposition parties, the Progressive Slovakia and Together Progressive Slovakia now is the part of, now it is the most relevant opposition party. So from that time perspective, that Robert Fico still believed in the continuation of this EU multivectoral policies. Smer, a few weeks after the invasion, started to oppose the sanction policy against the Russian Federation and to the and he started to claim the abandoning of the allegedly non-sovereign foreign policy, and Fico promoted the sovereign foreign policy and also the policy of the four cardinal directions. This policy of the four cardinal directions was promoted by Smer also in 2006. However, Smer never explained what does it mean. But what was new moment after 2022 and especially before the parliamentary elections, all parties of the future ruling coalition, it means Smer, but also Hlas, Social Democracy, and Slovak National parties, included this notion four cardinal directions foreign policy and sovereign foreign policy. They included it into their electoral manifestos. So the foreign policy consensus of the recent ruling coalition has already appeared before the parliamentary elections. What was also the balance of these 3 years of center-right government? The COVID era contributed to the radicalization of the politics in Slovakia, and the opposition strengthened not only their anti-elitarian rhetoric, but also anti-Western rhetoric, illiberal and even anti-liberal rhetoric. The new enemies were proclaimed not only the European elites, European institutions, new threats for the sovereignty, but also the non-governmental organization. So now coming back to Weiner and et al. And their theoretical article about the populist foreign policy, given the precise features of the authoritarian populism, as these parties turned not only to the populism, but also to the authoritarian populism. The more authoritarian a populist government is, the more it will be skeptical of any limitations to the national sovereignty, whether internal or external. So, this was also the main motto of the electoral campaign in 2023, and also the motto of the post-electoral development. So also one of the slogan of the mobilizing slogan of Robert Fico was not a single ballot for Ukraine. It means Robert Fico and Smer promised the end of the military help, military aid to the Ukraine. So as you of course know, the new coalition of Smer, Hlas, and Slovak National Party has been established in very, very quickly after the parliamentary elections in 2023. And how this foreign policy, populist foreign policy, became manifested in in practice. Firstly, how the foreign policy decision-making process was changed. If we are speaking about the anti-elitism of populism, before 2023 and even during the period of Fico's government, you must know Fico was the Prime Minister of Slovakia since 2006, only with few short breaks. So governments of Smer was the part of governments of Slovak governments almost 14 years. So even before Robert Fico and during the Robert Fico's governments, the decision-making process in terms of foreign policy was rather in the hands of technocrats. Both Fico's prime ministers like Kubiš and Miroslav Lajčák were career diplomats, as well as later after 2020, like Korčok, Rastislav Káčer, or Miroslav Vlachovský. So they were formerly employees of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So the role of the political, they were not the members of political parties. The role of political parties in the foreign policy making, in the definition of the foreign policy priorities, was quite weak, as general political parties didn't have significant expertise in the definition of the foreign policy priorities in Slovakia. So this tradition of the technocratization of the foreign policy was interrupted in 2023. Instead of the Robert Fico appointed the deputy party chairman Juraj Blanár for the Minister of Foreign Affairs. However, his experience in the foreign policy is, softly saying, very limited. However, this appointment of politician for the foreign minister, for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, could be considered as the part of democratization of the foreign policy making. However, there are also another moments. Also this anti-elitist approach and anti-pluralist approach resulted in the removal of non-governmental organization from the participation in the decision-making process from the new minister simply removed of the previous consulting mechanisms with the participation of academic sphere or non-governmental organization. Ministry of Foreign Affairs simply abandoned the previous grant schemes providing financial sources for the non-governmental organizations dealing with the foreign policy issues, and all this cooperation with these previous partners was cut. Now, however, it is not clear who are the foreign policy makers in Slovakia, who are the advisors, and where the foreign policy priorities, where the content of the foreign policy is created. So yes, Smer restored the sovereignty of political sphere, sovereignty of the people represented by parliamentary majority over the foreign policy, but it didn't result into the transparency of the foreign policy making. So also subsequently continued the personal changes in the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. Some of them were justified by the economic reasons and austerity policies. However, according to the former employees, the main reasons of their um, uh, expulsion from the ministry were political. Subsequently, about more than 100 people, allegedly 146 people, were hired to the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs, and many of them previously studied at the in Russian Federation at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations or at the St. Petersburg State University. So these economic reasons or needs for austerity policies could be really put under could be really questioned and disputed. So this is this is first impact of the strengthening of the populist character of the foreign policy of Slovakia after 2023. Then what followed, the gradual de-Europeanization of Smer and also Hlas as formerly social democratic parties. So the part of populist foreign policy is the contesting of the legitimacy of international institutions. Smer launched this process of its de-Europeanization, so of its of its decline from the common European social democratic political priorities already during the refugee crisis in 2015 and after the entering of the extreme right political party or neo-Nazi political party, more precisely to say, to the parliament in 2016. 1 year later, at the party congress in December 2017, Robert Fico stated that Smer must be a Slovak and not a Brussels social democracy. So the Brussels and European Union became became defined as a negative constitutive other for the political identity of this party. This shift entailed a stronger national accent and the defense of the so-called traditional Slovak way of life, and also illiberal anti-LGBT rhetoric and more critical stance to the European EU migration policy and sanctions against Russia. So Brussels became depicted as a symbol of liberal progressivism and a threat to the nation-state university. At the same time, however, Fico still declared the Slovakia's interest is becoming the part of the future core of European Union. And he also rejected the illiberal and Eurosceptic course of Poland and Hungary. So the attitude of Fico has changed after 2018 to attitude to Hungary and to the core of European Union since 2018 and especially 2020. He already didn't speak about the core of the EU as a main target of the foreign policy of Slovakia. However, there took place a significant rapprochement with the Orban's Fidesz, with the party of Fidesz represented by Viktor Orban. So if previously the main political allies of Smer were German Social Democrats and also Czech Social Democratic Party, The new political, gradually he really changed also his political environment so the new political allies of Robert Fico became the Czech president that time Miloš Zeman, but also former Czech president Václav Klaus and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Fico also launched not open but rather hidden cooperation with Serbian politicians like Aleksandar Vučić and Milorad Dodik from Republika Srpska. So this process of de-Europeanization of Smer has continued after elections to 2023. When Fico and Pellegrini announced the establishment of the coalition with the far-right Slovak National Party, Party of European Socialists responded by the suspending of their membership in this European Party structure. So not only the ideological de-Europeanization continued, but also the institutional de-Europeanization continued. So they were firstly suspended from this party, and Smer later in October 2025, after the Congress of the Party of European Socialists, was finally expelled from this association in a unanimous way. So there were no any votes against it or abstaining in the adoption of these resolutions. Hlas, however, is still in the state of suspension. And how this de-Europeanization is also what shows this de-Europeanization of this party is that this party was already suspended in the membership of Smer was already suspended in membership of Smer in Party of European Socialists was already suspended before in 2006 for the same reason, for this reason of the establishment of coalition with far-right Slovak National Party and Movement for Democratic Slovakia led by Vladimír Mečiar. However, Robert Fico, that time, Robert Fico made a significant effort to return back to this group, to rejoin this Party of European Socialists, and he was successful in these terms. Now, Smer party simply ignored this decision. The deputy chairman of the party, Ľuboš Blaha, even welcomed it, but generally there was no official party reaction to its expulsion from the Party of European Socialists. And so we can speak that this de-Europeanization took place both at the top-down level and and it was also bottom-up process, and it was simply just a mutual disengagement of between Smer and the Party of European Socialists. How this party Smer changed its political environment it shows also how the politicians from this party are voting in European Parliament. So mainly they are voting together in many issues with the members of the group Patriots for Europe. Ľuboš Blaha is voting rather together, mostly voting rather together with the with the group of Europe of Sovereign Nations, and only few of members of European Parliament from Smer and Hlas are voting together with the European Left Party. So they switched rather to the Eurosceptic. They are looking for the partnership with the Eurosceptic political groupings, and this. But what is also peculiar that Smer didn't respond positively to the offer of Andrej Babiš and Viktor Orban to join this group of patriots for Europe, probably because still the left identity is very strong represented among the party members, and just in order to avoid the split within the party. And now we are coming to the third segment of the Europeanization, to the practices of the policy making. It is mostly visible in the relations with Russia. So Robert Fico is promoting the restoration of the standard and friendly relations with Russia, and he is justifying his political course by the economic interests of the country. So in May 2026, he was the single EU politician who paid a visit to Moscow to celebrate the Victory Day anniversary, however, not taking part in the military parade on the Red Square. Fico is continuing to criticize the sanctions policy. However, he made significant shifts in order to restore the political relations with the Russian Federation. He is criticized in this point by the opposition. Also, one representative of this party, the deputy chairman of deputy speaker of parliament, Tibor Gaspar, when he paid a visit to Moscow after his return to Bratislava, he admitted the withdrawal of Slovakia from the European Union. It raised the protests organized by the non-governmental organizations and supported by the opposition parties criticizing this foreign policy. Also, Peter Pellegrini and the junior coalition and Hlas as a junior coalition partner refused the possible Slovakian exit. So, however, his pro-Russian policy, he has also its limits. So what are the limits of the Europeanization and the populist foreign policy raised by Smer? Firstly, Fico and Smer are criticized, and their foreign policy is criticized by the radical pro-Russian wing of Slovak politics, including the coalition Slovak National Party, but also by the non-parliamentary nation conservative radical right parties as Republic, or radical left party. They are criticizing his double face politics, because Robert Fico also expressed his desire to continue to launch pragmatic cooperation with Ukraine, and he is continuously supporting the accession of Ukraine to the European Union. Also, another limit of his de-Europeanization politics are the economic limits. Slovakia also expressed its wish to participate in the European future European policies in order to support the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. So both Robert Fico and other government members are stressing that Slovakia wants to participate in it, also because this process will be financed by European Union, and they are seeing their space for the business interests of Slovak companies. And another limit is are the relations with Ukraine. Although Robert Fico didn't pay official visit to Kyiv, and he met with Ukrainian Prime Minister Shmyhal and also later with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky only in the Ukrainian border city of Uzhhorod. However, Fico is interested in the continuation of the business cooperation with Ukraine, business cooperation, by the way, launched by the previous governments of center-right government led by Eduard Heger. What is the strong point of this change of this pro-Russian shift in the foreign policy is the electoral support. The conservative and pro-Russian left is, from the long-term perspective, the strongest and very stable segment of the Slovak voters. So now I'm going to the conclusions. So the current state shows also the strong points, but also the very weak points in the continuation of the so-called four cardinal directions policies. The significant segment of Slovak society is supporting it. However, also the limits are mostly in the based in the economic interests of the country. Also, the costs of this populist foreign policy in terms of Eastern policy of Slovakia are, for example, the frozen relations with many EU partners, especially, for example, Poland, and now probably also Hungary, while Fico established very close relationship with Viktor Orban, based also not only on the support for illiberal solutions in domestic policies, but also in the de-Europeanizing efforts in the foreign policy issues. Now, his Orban's electoral defeat and replacement of Orban by Peter Magyar showed the limits of his policies. So immediately after the results of elections in Hungary were announced, Robert Fico expressed his wish to meet with the German Federal Chancellor Merz, and also he expressed his wish to meet with to conduct the meeting with Zelensky and even to visit him in Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. But what is the final result is that all the new cleavage that was present in the foreign policy of Slovakia in 1990s, in the second half of 1990s, is back in, and it is once again the very strong and very deep division line in the Slovak politics, and it will also have a significant impact on the functioning, on the creation of the future governmental coalitions. So thank you once again for inviting me and for your attention. And now I would like to open the space for the discussion if there will be such an interest.
Thank you, Juraj. Thank you for shedding the light on current situation, not only in Slovakia, but on the stance of Slovakia towards the EU. and the traps, so to say, that can oppose to, in our case, North Macedonia and Serbia. First of all, I want to open the floor to the Zoom room. If any of us have question, I will go last. I have one question concretely. Yeah. Okay, if there is none, I will ask the question. If I understand you correctly, Fico is playing this double game. He's not excluding Russia, not playing full game with the European Union. I will be blunt with my question. Traditionally, the Visegrad Bloc was very concrete on the enlargement process, and it was continuously helping the candidate states in their pursuit. What this stance means from a Slovakia standpoint is the foreign policy of Slovakia focusing on the enlargement, or it's just non-existing and it's like I don't know, focusing on themselves in the European Union? What does it mean for the Balkan region, for example, for Albania, for Montenegro, for North Macedonia, for Serbia?
So until now, fits foreign policy, this issue of, in case of EU enlargement, foreign policy of Slovakia is nowadays mostly focused on Serbia. Fico established after 2023 very close partnership with Serbian government, with the Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić. So Slovak government is consequently supporting Serbian government, even in the context of the political unrests taking place in Serbia in 2025, even despite of the persecution of Slovak minority members in Serbia. Fico also stressed a few months ago that if that Serbia must enter the European Union before Ukrainian will do so. So that this is the main point. As far as I know, there were no similar statements regarding, I don't know, Macedonia or Albania or Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and so on. Slovakia is continuously insisting on the policy of non-recognition of Kosovo, and it is more or less the topic of consensus between the coalition and opposition. So at least not recognition de jure. And regarding the Ukrainian membership, Fico is stressing that Slovakia will support the EU accession of Ukraine, but only if Ukraine will meet all the membership criteria. So this is it can be explained in many different ways. Robert Fico doesn't support, for example, the proposal of Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz, according to whom there should be some special state offered Ukraine special status or associated membership, and he also stressed that it could result into the war between European Union and Russia. So from this perspective, the Fico's support to the EU enlargement remains rather frozen, because as also we know, the EU accession process of Serbia is now somehow stalemated, and these negotiations are not progressing anymore.
So you want to say that his foreign policy for enlargement, if I catch the narrative correctly, it's just from the ideological standpoint. I like Vučić. I supported Vučić.
Yes.
You know, which is okay. It's not unusual, but very strange strategy. Okay, is there anybody else have a question to Juraj?
So
okay.
as general, we are speaking about Visegrad cooperation. Almost all Visegrad politicians claim they are interested in it. However, the recent war in Ukraine and different stances of Visegrad Group member states, or participating countries, more precisely to say, contributed to the stagnation and to the freezing of this cooperation. So even in the allegedly the Visegrad Group cannot act even in allegedly non-political issues. There is continuing the Visegrad cooperation on the bilateral level, for example, in the terms of energy cooperation, in terms of completion of energy projects, but not Visegrad cooperation as such. So we will see also what will be the practical steps of the.
We are talking about fragmentation. We are talking about the fragmentation in the stance of the Visegrad Pact, or
depoliticization, deprioritization of.
Okay. If there is no other questions, this concludes our session. We're gonna have a break and continue at 2:30 with the talk by Spasimir Domarashki. Thank you very much. See you at 2:30. Bye. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for inviting me. See you.